Welcome to another episode of Tuning In with Bob Lancer and Dr. Greg Nielsen. How are you doing today, Greg?
I'm doing fantastic, Bob, and I'm assuming you're doing well because I do see a smile. That's a good indication.
I
I
wrote,
hear a laugh.
did,
That's
did
great.
you ever hear Isidore when I used to say he'd call me on the phone and he'd say, "How are you?" and I would say, "However I was," he'd say, "Just say reasonable." Did he ever tell you that one to say
Yes.
reasonable?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Reasonable. It
Just
was a way of being a little more detached.
detached, balanced.
That's
Yeah,
how I took it anyway.
right, right, right. I'm
Yeah.
feeling wonderful. Sorry, Isidore.
Yeah. Really. I hate to feel too good.
Yeah. So, Greg, it's your turn this episode. Would you start us off with reading a quote from the wisdom of Isidore Friedman? And
And I
that's
think we
really
can
what
see
the
the
show is all
visual.
about, is carrying
This
that,
is,
that wisdom forward. Go ahead.
thank you, Bob. This is the book, Organics, The Law of the Breathing Spiral, which I'm in process through my publishing steps that I've done over the years in recreating for people, hopefully sometime this year. It's already been retyped because in 1973, there was no typeset. I mean, it was typesetting only, no word processing.
Right. Yep.
I found a section in the book related to what we've talked about before on space-time energy matter. And I think it might lead to something else possibly we might talk about, but I'll just read that short section. It's about a paragraph.
Okay.
Space-time, energy, matter are the warp and woof of our functioning in the physical universe. When we speed things up, we then lose our sense of judgment, make wrong coordinates, and hurt, damage, and destroy each other as certainly and surely as a bagel factory makes bagels. Yeah, that's good. I'm getting images of Brooklyn. I don't know why.
Very holy stuff. Very holy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm hungry. So, okay. Then he had the next line was it starts with a W-E, emphasize, italicized. We do it and nobody else. Neither experts nor authorities nor governments can help us. We have to undo the chaotic approach and way of life and bring sensible order into the framework laws governing our lives. So that was the quote that I found early part of the book. And of course, that was one of the core functional skills that Izzy emphasized.
Yeah, I remember he used to talk about rushitis,
Oh, yeah.
right? Which is basically what you just said, in a single word. It's
Uh-huh.
when we start pushing the pace and we start rushing, that's chaos.
Yes.
Personal chaos, global chaos. And what percentage of the world do you think, like right this moment, is in a state of rush?
Even the people sleeping are in a state of rush.
Yeah, they're already right.
No,
Right.
a high percentage. I don't know what it would be. It's got to be, my guess is well over 80%, probably, maybe
Yeah.
90 or 95%.
And people
They
think
have
that
too
that's
many things to do in too short a time. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, they have to, get food. They have to take care of kids. They have to till the field or work in the factory. Or yeah, it's just it's incredible.
And it's all based on the belief that it's necessary and that it's responsible, when the facts are it is not necessary to rush, except in rare occasions,
Yeah.
for a short amount of time. And
Yep.
it's not responsible because that's when the mistakes are made. That's
Hmm.
when you're all jazzed up in your nervous system, you're on edge, you're ready to react, explode. He would talk about operating with superficial observation, poor reasoning, and hasty judgment,
Hmm.
all from that state of rush. So let's go back. Just explain a little bit, if you would, about STEM. He said it's the warp and woof of reality. What does that mean to you?
Okay. I mean, of course, everybody has different associations, but from experience and my own ways of expressing things, to me, and you brought this up before, you need to take a look at these four areas and become conscious of them. So the space that you're in, for example, the room you're in, I'm in right now, the neighborhood I'm in, I'm aware of.
Hmm.
I do a quick check of the room before we start.
Hmm.
How's the heat? Is there light? Is the laptop working?
Hmm.
My headphones or my earpieces?
Hmm.
Uh, is the dog in the back of the house barking right now?
Hmm.
How's it look? It's 2 rooms away. I think I'll be fine if it starts barking. Just I can go on and on, but
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then yeah, then you have time. Okay, we picked a time coordinate. And of course, you're in a different time zone than I am, so we make sure we communicate that clearly. Pacific time versus Eastern time, so we know that's important. And in my case, because I take time into consideration, I make a policy usually of 5 minutes before the time, making sure that the laptop works or the
Mhm.
Zoom connection actually functions, because things can happen.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, you can go on
And
and on
giving
with that.
and giving yourself enough time to
Hmm.
do what you have to do
Yep,
without rush.
yep,
Be able to
exactly.
be conscious, to see what you're
Hmm.
doing, to function in a conscious, methodical, orderly way.
Yep. And then
That's essential to organics.
the next thing is the checking on your energy. So that involves self-observation, self-reflection, and feeling and noticing what state of energy you're in. I noticed about 2 hours ago, I had a late lunch and I'm feeling very tired. I said, do I
Mhm.
want to feel this way at 4 o'clock or 7 o'clock your time? No.
Mhm.
I took a short nap. I was rejuvenated. And one of my motivation was I had something to do later. I
Mhm.
didn't want to be pushing to
Mhm.
do too many things in too short a time, so
Mhm.
that at 4 o'clock I'm exhausted. So I kept
Mhm.
that in mind. And
Yeah.
then matter.
Well,
Okay.
but first, to stay with
Yeah.
energy just for another
Okay.
moment,
Sure. Oh yeah.
it's it's one of our considerations of when we're considering doing something, do I have the energy to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Or is doing it gonna deplete my energy where I'm gonna go into a space of strain?
Mm-hmm.
If it's gonna deplete my energy, it's gonna be, unless there's really seriously extenuating circumstances, 9 times out of 10,
Yeah.
I have to not do it. I have to make sure that I'm not overexpending my energy. Because
Mm-hmm.
once I go down in energy, I go down in consciousness, I go down in functioning. Again, I get more reactive, I'm more open to whatever negative vibes there are. So we
Mm-hmm.
always have to consider the energy factor when we're going to do something. And then the T.
And the T is time. Okay. Seems like an obvious thing. We know the time, space, time,
Oh,
energy,
no,
matter.
I'm sorry. We're on M. We did time. We
M for
did space,
matter.
time, energy. We're on
I have to
M.
go back to second grade and learn my spelling. Excuse me.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
M for matter. M for matter. No,
Right,
but
right.
matter. Okay. Well, what am I dealing with? Okay. I've got walls
Mm-hmm,
here. I've got a physical organism, beautifully functioning body. At least
mm-hmm,
today, it's doing great.
mm-hmm,
Most days it is,
mm-hmm,
because I make an effort to take care of it over many years.
mm-hmm,
Uh, I I respect the fact that it's on a table.
mm-hmm,
Is it high enough?
mm-hmm,
Is it solid enough?
mm-hmm.
You can go on and on.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
What is your computer in decent shape?
yeah.
Right. We look at that. Or if I'm going to be driving somewhere, do I have enough gas? Which car am I going to take? Is the car in good enough shape to take that trip? Do I have all the materials I need for the meeting? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
all
had the
those,
book.
yeah,
Had the book ready.
that's material. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just remembering, I remember I would go maybe a year, maybe more, just practicing staying conscious of the space, the time, the energy,
Mm-hmm.
the matter, and whatever it is that I'm doing. Make sure I have everything that I need. That's the matter. And make sure I have the energy I need. That's the energy. Make sure I'm giving myself the time I need to do it gracefully and consciously. And make sure I'm doing it in a space where, there are not a lot of people, where it's a comfortable space, it's well lit, it's the right
Mm-hmm.
space. If you're gonna perform surgery, you don't do it in a gas station.
I'm going to
Hopefully.
quote you on that. I have a friend of mine who's a plastic surgeon. I'm going to use that with him next time I see him.
Like,
How
he's
come you
well,
don't do your plastic surgery in a gas station, man?
that's right. Yeah. And yeah, so
Yeah.
we look at the location to make sure it's
Oh, yeah.
suitable for the function that we're gonna do.
And with him, since I'm making the association here,
Uh-huh.
he actually had a building constructed for his surgical center. It was exactly what he needed
Right.
to accommodate his skills in working with the
Accommodate,
people.
support, right?
Yeah.
The skills, whatever his objectives are, he
Yeah.
created space, he created matter,
Hmm.
materials to support what he's trying to accomplish. Just
So
take the
after,
time to
oh,
prepare.
sorry to interrupt you there. After reading this, I think I sent you a message about deviation and distortion caused by environmental deviation or circumstances. No,
Yeah.
can you remember what it is? I have
I'm
it
gonna
written
see if I
down.
can, yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get it back because I remember him
The-
talking about
oh,
that.
environmental disturbances.
Okay, so what's the full statement?
Okay, deviation and distortion caused by environmental disturbances. Now, when
Yes,
Izzy first said that to me, I still can't say it all at once.
right, right.
So he used to say DDCED, and he has it in the book,
Yep.
Organic. He's talked about it quite often. And the reason I brought it up to you is there are times, and you mentioned it, extenuating circumstances. And this is when you're being conscious and STEM function really works exceptionally well relative to how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you like a little example. The reason I brought it up, uh, I teach often on Monday nights, and if it snows, then we use Zoom to teach the class. Okay, no problem. I did that for a couple of years. I know pretty much how to do it. However, they changed this year to using Google Classroom and Pear Deck.
Yes.
It involves a lot more technology functioning.
Mm-hmm.
So I scheduled an appointment for a Monday at 12:15 because I knew I didn't have the skills to do the STEM.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to have some expert who's good at that at our school, right down the block here, to help me with that. That was the day we had a big snowstorm. So talking about deviation and distortion caused by environmental disturbance, I really didn't know what to do and how to do it. And that was when things really kind of kicked in, where I sort of jumped in and just figured I'm going to do it. And you just kind of go with the punches.
Mm-hmm.
If you stay conscious, it's almost like riding on a river in a raft, but you're a rafter. You know how to do the currents.
Mm-hmm.
It's not perfect by any means, but you keep your head above water. And one thing I did ask her, she said, you know what? I know you don't know how to do this. You could figure it out. I'll give you some basics, but use FaceTime and call me right in the middle of it, what you're doing. And turn the camera to the screen and I'll show you which buttons to push. I would say it wasn't the greatest fluid class, but there were 10 or 15 students on there in the virtual.
Mm-hmm.
We got them all on, but the
Mm-hmm.
fact that we kind of had that plan ahead of time really made a difference. But
Sure.
to me, yeah, it was like riding the crest of a wave or something. It was just,
Right. And
I didn't, yeah,
maintaining that inner sense of
yes,
calm and confidence that it's going to work out
it's going to work out, not
as you pay
worry too
attention.
much. Yeah,
Right.
not worry.
Right.
I felt uncomfortable, no doubt about it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I would have rather have gone to that 12:15 training, which my
Mm-hmm.
intuition kind of knew we better get that in. We're in the middle of winter. It
Yep.
was, of course, that was the day.
That
And
was
I said,
the story.
deviation, distortion caused by environmental disturbance. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And we came up with a plan and it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to have some flexibility too,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
adaptability along the way. Isidore used to say there's always an X factor,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
right?
X
There's always
factors.
an X factor.
I pretty much assume there's several X factors and there's layers of X factors
Right.
and nothing goes according to plan
Right. Right.
necessarily.
Right.
But you plan anyway.
So
And
DDED, what does it stand for again? Deviation and distortion.
deviation and distortion caused by environmental disturbance.
Yeah, and so, you can also apply that to being in a room with someone who is irate,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
right?
I've had situations like that.
And you can feel the energy. And what is
Hmm.
what is that irate energy? What is the impact it has? Like, let's say a parent is trying to help a kid with his homework,
Yeah.
but the parent is losing his temper.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
there's the distortion that is entering the child's mind. It's going to
Yeah.
scramble his brain. He can't figure out what's going on, right? And it
Yeah.
can be in any environment. When you have a person who's irate and emotional, that's distorting. That radiates into everybody, and it makes it more difficult for everybody to stay calm and
Hmm.
focused and centered and functional. So that's
I
another
think you're,
association with that.
oh, yeah, that's a wonderful.
Mhm.
And I've had situations as a teacher in the past where there was students that went out of control arguing with each other in the classroom and needed to calm things down by my first being calm myself.
That's
And it wasn't necessarily easy because you could
right.
feel the energy kind of inside of you going like almost like a vortex kind of sweeping you into it.
Absolutely.
And the last time that happened, I told the students, just stop, just stop it right now. I started off with that gentle voice, I guess you could say, friendly voice.
Mhm.
But teacher voices, when you go to teach younger students,
Right.
you sometimes have to up the ante on the voice tone. I didn't really scream, but it was loud.
Yeah.
Just
That's
stop it
important. Yeah.
now.
Right. Right. And
And that didn't work.
if you right, sometimes nothing works, but
Yeah.
maintain your own sanity.
Thank you. You brought up the next point I was going to say. Just, okay, stay calm.
That's right.
Don't yell and scream.
That's right. Don't let it get
Wasn't
into
easy.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
But interestingly enough, the best friend of one of the students walks up to me and said, I'm not going to use names. Can I take so-and-so out into the hall? I think that would be important right now.
Came through. That's right. You got
I
the
didn't think
support.
he jumped into motion. He felt calm enough to figure out a good, he knows his friend and he says, let's get this done. That really
Mhm.
sort of calmed things down.
And
Yeah.
that could be very much because you were able to maintain what we might call a centered radiance, a
Yeah.
calm, radiant, like Isidore used to talk about peace, poise, power.
Yeah. Peace, poise, and power.
When you maintain that peace and poise, that is already an ordering force. He would say, like, to bring
Mhm.
order into chaos, you do it in an orderly way. You have to be an ordering force in the
Mhm.
chaos. To be one of the metaphors he used was to be an island of sanity in the sea of insanity.
That's real. Whoa.
To
That's a good.
practice. So I did
Yeah.
have a question for you, interested to hear your answer to it.
Yeah.
Um, how would you recommend someone, because you're publishing one of Isidore's books now,
Yeah.
how would you recommend someone read organics? How do you read organics? Because the first time we sit through it, it's like way beyond us, but you can
Oh,
still
yeah.
feel some kind of deeper resonance going on. So how would you recommend someone read organics? Read is a
Eh,
work.
Yeah. You got to be a reader. So, some people, if you're not a reader, you're not going to probably read that much of it.
Probably not. You might get the
But
vibe if you put your
yeah,
hand
you
up.
get a vibe off it. You get an energy from it.
Mhm.
I think you have to give it a chance, is what I think. I think Vitvan, who was also a wonderful teacher, uh, very functional and structured and using Korzybski and so on.
Mhm.
I think one of his students asked him, how long will it take for me to reach whatever? He
Mhm.
said, as long as it takes. He said, give it at least give it a couple of years.
Right,
So I
right.
think you have to give it some
Mhm.
time. Say, for example, you have one of his notebooks or one of his books,
Mhm.
or you have an essay, or you have Percepton, another book that he wrote.
Mhm.
Just give it a chance to read it and just move through it the best you can. The
Like
next thing
planting seeds,
yeah,
like planting seeds.
right, planting seeds. And in my view, with a lot of material and especially organics, you need to go back and reread.
Oh yeah.
You got to reread. You got to be willing to go back
And
and go
copy
over
it
it
by
again.
hand.
Yeah, go over it again
So yeah.
and be willing to give it a full try.
Mhm.
And it is based on structure and function.
Mhm.
So you test it out and you see how it goes. That's pretty much the approach I took.
Mhm.
I'm going to test it. I'm going to give it some time. I was an avid reader, so I really enjoy the material.
Mhm.
But I was non-functional. It was all like, what?
Mhm.
What's that? It feels good, but I
Mhm.
don't really think. I wonder if I can even do that. I mean,
But
and sometimes I,
what you describe is an organic approach to reading it.
yeah, organic approach. Give it some time. You don't have to do it all at once.
Mhm.
You can do it over time. Give yourself plenty of time. Don't have to read the book all in one day or a writing all in one day. You can
Mhm.
do little pieces and chunks.
And
If you get
not to struggle too hard to conceptualize
no,
what you're reading. For me, it was just trusting that on some level I'm getting it.
yeah,
And I think if you're just receptive to just receiving it, I think the structure of the language itself starts to work a little bit of magic on us. It starts to bring some order and structure into how we function. Just absorbing it, in an open-minded way, that every idea, every word is just a seed that's being planted, and
hmm
eventually the flower of understanding will blossom in its
yeah.
own time if you're patient with it.
And of course, organics is loaded with a lot of practical, functional skill points
Mhm.
that you can actually practice, like we just talked about, deviation and distortion caused by environmental,
Mhm.
setting up your stem. These
Mhm.
are two functional things that you can work on and practice. So you can pick something and
Yeah.
say, let me work on that.
Yeah.
today, this week, this month, this year, and test it out. I love the idea of testing something to see if it works for you.
Well,
Nine times,
that's really the essence of what we would call, Aquarian age wisdom teaching is it's not
yeah,
about believe, believe, believe. It's
no,
about test, test, test.
test
Put it
it
to
out.
the test, experiment, see what the results are, and then
Hmm.
you know if it works or not. You don't have to believe that it's going to work.
No,
Just
just
try it
test it
out.
out. Yeah,
Just try
absolutely.
it out.
And okay, I would say a high percentage of what he presented to us, if not 100%, a very high percentage of functional things. He said, do this, try this, experiment with that, test it out.
Right,
When you did, you felt better.
right.
You looked better. You smelled better.
You have
You
better
appeared,
results. Yeah.
you could see, okay, I can change how I do something in a way that's a little more, what's the
Well,
word?
for me, I found that I was able to just really live in it with more authenticity. I
Yeah.
felt like I was more in line with who I truly am, and
Hmm.
the choices that I was making was coming from a deeper level. It wasn't about what will people think.
Yeah.
It's about, how does this affect me? How is this
Hmm.
working? And I would take, every day I would maybe read a paragraph and just contemplate all day, how do I put this into action?
Hmm.
How do
Hmm.
I put this into practice? Um, I remember one really momentous experience that I had when Isidore, recommended that I go out and like drive a truck and
Oh,
work in construction and all. You remember when I
you
was
told me
doing,
about that before, and I think I remembered it later after you told me the first time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I remember, I used to love how I felt in his presence.
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
This high energy, clear
Hmm.
consciousness, incredibly connected to the universe in a beautiful way. And I was like working out there with my hands and feeling so disconnected. And this suddenly it occurred to me, what if I just kind of imagine that he's right here with me? I remember what it feels like to
Hmm.
be in his presence.
Yeah.
And that completely changed my life.
Hmm.
From then on, I was able to tune into the energy of it and
Hmm.
function with it on my own,
Yeah.
really get it.
Yeah.
That was
I'm
a
with
big,
you. I'm with you there on that. Yeah, you can access that frequency within you consciously anytime you can focus enough to have that happen. And
yeah,
it
yeah.
happens fairly quickly if you have good focus.
Yeah, yeah. And similar thing happened when I first went to the School of the Natural Order, which is where Vitvan teaches. And in
Hmm.
a sense, Vitvan was like a teacher of Isidore. He had notebooks of natural order wisdom teaching notes that he took from Vitvan's stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember I was able to feel the frequency of Home Farm out there
Oh,
in
yeah.
Bacon, Nevada, where they send out Vitvan's teachings.
Hmm.
And that was a profoundly unique, beautiful, beautiful high frequency. Were you able to tune into some of that when you would visit Home
Oh,
Farm?
that's main reason I went there, basically. I live in Nevada.
Right.
However, Nevada's a big state, so it is a 400-mile distance from
Mhm.
where I am. But from time to time, I've gone there, and that's one reason I go there because I need a real dose of rejuvenation and realignment.
Right. Now, Bitban's teachings are very high level,
Oh
kind of
yeah.
high order abstractions a lot, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But delivered in a very structured way. Um, when how were you introduced to Bitfan's work? Did Isidore tell you about it, or how did you get? Do you remember how
Good
you got?
question. I'm sure Isidore must have
Yeah,
brought it up.
yeah,
Sure he did.
yeah.
Because the teacher I had before him was Francois. I don't think Francois he didn't really know about it, although he would go to Weiser's bookstore on a regular basis as well. And uh, there was a guy named Ehud who was the store worker, book
Mm-hmm.
guy, who was giving things to Izzy and giving things for Francois and so on. But I'm sure it was, I think
Mm-hmm.
it led from reading Science and Sanity by Alfred Korzybski, read to Vitvan for me. I think,
Yeah,
if I recall.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was a
Because
basic.
Vietnam, yeah,
Yes, I read that several times while I was
yeah.
working with Isidore. So, one thing I wanted to bring up
Oh, yeah.
throughout the time of working with Isidore, when we would, if I was, what he would use in order to clear out all the emotionalism, the emotional reactivity, what he called the pressure points of the past, he would have us do these PPPs that he called it.
Right. Yeah.
And he would measure with his pendulum, like how much time do you need it?
Mhm.
right? And the
Yeah.
PPP basically consisted of, correct me if I'm forgetting something, where basically you go into a room and you close the door and you get lots of pieces of scrap paper and you get some heavy duty markers or crayons
Mhm.
or pencils,
Mhm.
and you just write feverishly from a deep emotional state. And
Yeah.
just kind of like throw up on the page all of your anger, all of your fear, all of your frustrations. You do that for a certain amount of time. That would clear you out. Then you rest for a little while.
Mhm.
That was his approach to clearing out emotionally.
I think you summarized it very well. And one favorite part of what you just said is give yourself a little time afterward
Right.
to let things settle down.
Mhm.
I think in the beginning, I didn't really listen to that.
Oh, wow.
Why do I have to wait for things? And
Oh
why do
boy.
I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
like driving
I,
drunk, you know.
yeah, basically, I guess, egotistical arrogance and
Sure.
just lack of awareness. I guess a combination of those.
Mhm.
I feel so good now. I'm just going to take all this. I think I'll get on the subway.
Right.
I'm going to go
Oh
visit a
boy.
friend. Well, that wasn't a good idea usually because
Oh,
you
wide,
just,
wide open.
yeah, you can attract
Yeah.
some little bit weird energy situations.
Very, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
And
I
then
did learn my lesson there.
after you write it out, you
Yeah.
tear it up,
Yep.
you go to the bathroom and you set it on fire and drop it in the toilet bowl.
Yeah.
So
There's many.
I did that so many times, so many hours.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
And I would feel better at the time,
Yeah.
but it didn't free me
No.
of my emotional reaction, my deep emotional reaction buttons.
Right.
And from time to time, over the course of the years that followed my work with Isidore, I would find every 7 to 10 years, I'd go through a relationship breakup.
Uh-huh.
I would have a kind of a breakdown. And I
Mm-hmm.
would go into some very negative places, very dark places within me, where I
Yeah.
would feel a lot of insecurity and anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
And over time, that would get stronger over time. And there
I
was
mean,
no
over time, over the decades or
over the
over that.
decades,
Okay.
over the
It
decades,
got stronger,
it got
like a more of a powerful force gripping you. Okay. Got it.
stripping me and just
Yeah.
tearing me apart.
Okay.
And it wasn't until um, about 10 years ago when I ran into or encountered or connected with Arnold Patent,
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that connection. I read his book and
the author
excellent.
of You Can Have It All.
Yeah.
And it was interesting how I sort of connected with him. But when I shared with him what my problem was, that I had all this knowledge and I was able to apply it. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't able, I couldn't control
Yeah.
my mind. I couldn't find my peace and poise. I was a
Hmm.
wreck. And he said, well, I have this process and I can help you.
Oh,
And so
wonderful.
over the phone, he guided me through this process, and boom, I was out.
Wow. That's
And I
great.
knew, yeah, and I knew immediately that this had been the missing key, is how to really free yourself from deep emotional suffering patterns.
Mm.
And I knew that it was part of my mission to bring that to the world. And I fashioned it a little bit. I adapted a little bit because I had all the organics behind me, and I called it the method.
Oh,
And as
I've
soon as
tried it. I've definitely tried it. It's wonderful.
yeah,
Excellent.
as
Yeah.
soon as I started sharing it with people, they also saw, yeah, this is the ability to actually live it, not
Hmm.
just know it and fall apart when things don't work out.
Yeah.
Actually free yourself from that falling apart pattern and allow the true self to come through and live in that beautiful energy, what Arnold used to call the high joy vibration.
Ooh,
And what
yeah.
was interesting about the two of them is that on the phone, Arnold sounded exactly like Isidore. He was from the same generation. He was a Jewish
Yeah.
boy from New York.
Yeah. Very gifted,
He's
mentally
passed on.
gifted, excellent writer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's since passed on.
I saw that. Yeah.
But the combining of the two was really the key for me.
Yeah.
So was there anything in organics that was missing for you
Not from organics, but from myself. Yes. If that makes any
that
sense.
organics didn't do for you?
Okay. Do for me. Well, not offhand. When it came to those more difficult times for me, as the decades went by, not 10 years or 20 years, but 30, 40, 50 years, when things hit me, an event, a situation, a disaster, uh, whatever it might be, some major, maybe more major event, I got to the point where I would go, all right, this is going to be cool. Let's see if we can get on the roller coaster and ride this one through.
Mhm,
I saw it as a kind of internal muscle building
mhm,
skill.
mhm,
And in that process, believe me, I wasn't on top of it every second,
mhm,
but I had enough separation
mhm.
to be able to use the things from organics
Mm,
to rejuvenate.
right.
And of course, there were times that I would go to a home farm when I was in those conditions.
Mm,
So I have two locations I can go to. I have the Shasta Abbey in Mount Shasta, California, the Zen Buddhist monastery.
mhm,
And when I leave there, I can't feel the tires on the road. They literally float back. When I
mm,
go to home farm or School of the Natural Order in Nevada, very similar.
mm,
So I knew I had these, that maybe that was what was missing. I had those places to go to have the reinforcement from other people,
mhm,
joy, love, compassion, higher energy that they're maintaining to
mhm,
be able to rejuvenate and retransform the
mm,
grittiness of whatever I was going through.
mhm.
There was a couple of times where I was so grateful to have those locations to, and I know they're still there.
You got
And
the
if I
support you
needed
need.
it, I would go and
Uh-huh.
I would get there
Yeah,
and go, I need that right now. I don't have enough on my own.
right,
Yeah. So
right.
maybe that's it. I didn't have a
Yeah,
place to go where
yeah.
other people were maintaining a higher vibration
Mhm,
as a group. So
mhm.
now the
Yeah.
Shasta Abbey, I mean, there's many places like that. It's just one that I found because it's easy to get to and it's beautiful. They've been around a long time, since the 1970s. So these people, I don't know how they do it. Year in, year out, you go there again, there they are, just doing their meditation, doing their routine, working on being more conscious, and so on. So anyway, that would be my answer. Would be
Mhm,
not knowing I need to have assistance. I need
mhm.
help.
Right.
For me, that was important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess you by finding Arnold Patton, you found someone who could help you with that.
it was just like this one little piece
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
needed. I only worked with him for maybe a month,
Doesn't take long. If
just
somebody's
maybe a
good
month. It
for
was
you.
just
Yeah.
that little tweak that I
Yeah.
didn't have, that just helped me to maintain
Yeah.
that, Wittgenstein refers to it as like the Garden of Aru, the higher
Yeah.
psychic level of
Mhm.
harmony that I was able to go right into from the
Mhm.
method. And
Yeah.
then it's, Isidore talks about the importance of, watching our thoughts,
Oh, yeah.
how our thoughts can sabotage us if we're not paying enough attention. People
Mhm.
don't realize how important it is to pay attention to every thought you think. There's a lot of teachings out there that talk about like creative visualization and visualizing
Mhm.
what you want. What they don't talk about is how much time people spend visualizing what they don't want unconsciously, automatically. Right? And
And
you worry, you're visualizing what you don't want.
in those moments or times when you can call it like a little bit of an avalanche is happening in your life, if you're conscious, okay, I'm going through an avalanche. I feel overwhelmed.
Mhm.
I'm being pulled under the current, whatever way you want to put it. If you can pay attention to that, even a small percentage, your negative thoughts will begin to reduce fairly quickly. At least you can lower it. But the tendency I had when I was younger is I would justify the fact that I need to think negative because I'm in
Mm.
a negative situation.
Yep.
That's reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't deny it. So I'm going to keep thinking about it stubbornly.
Yeah. 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 And,
I'll
and
figure, yeah,
yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And, yeah. And not realizing that you're actually living in your head. You're
Yeah,
not, the situation you're living in is imaginary
yeah,
because you're looking at it as an image in your, Wittgenstein calls them images in the mind made substantive.
yes, yes,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
Seeing these images. So one practice I really enjoy doing is immediately is upon awakening and all day long until I go to sleep at night is really watching every mental image that crosses my mind. And the sport in fishing is called catch and release.
Yeah, yeah.
Catch a fish, that's not good enough. I'm going to throw it back.
I have
Same thing
friends
with
of mine
thought.
who are fishermen here locally who do that. Yeah,
Same thing with thought.
yeah.
Catch it, no thanks. right? It's causing me stress. It's causing me distress, right?
Yeah.
It's not what I want to manifest. It's not what I want to create.
Yeah.
I think he talked somewhere, which has kind of an alchemical reference. He was talking about how the present is like the crystallization of the past thoughts and feelings that you lived in.
Okay.
So melt it away, melt away the limitations, and you're
The
kind
thought that went through my mind when you were talking was when I get up, when I first wake up, I don't know what you want to call that zone of transition between sleep and awake. But over the years, I've gotten better, and I have a long way to go at noticing where's my mind going in a way that's sort of out of control with random thoughts out of nowhere.
Mhm.
And I'm going like, what? Now I go like, what's that? I'm just going to get up and make a cup of coffee. I'm not going with that.
Get out of my
Whereas
head.
it might have been years ago. Well, I'm just sort of lingering. Maybe I'll go back to sleep and your mind just wanders off and you can't even remember a couple minutes later what it was. I go
Mhm.
like, what was I thinking about? I didn't care for it 2 minutes ago and I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't something really where I wanted to go today.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's a real key. You can get off on a wrong foot,
Mhm. The wrong thought.
the wrong thought early in the morning or
Yep.
at other times too. But for me, it's when you wake up, pay attention.
Mhm.
Notice where your mind is going. You don't have to go with that
That's
if
right.
you don't want to.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get wonderful intuitions and
Mhm.
wonderful insights that you can test out.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll have a notebook and write it down. It goes, oh, that's very useful. Thank you, wherever that came from.
Mhm.
Other times it's like you go into some sort of tape recording of replaying some event or worrying about something that might happen
Mhm.
if you don't this or don't that.
Mhm.
You let that,
Like worrying about what other people think.
yeah. Or, maybe I made a mistake on that and I could have done it this way instead of that way. Well, okay, so what? Now what? Now what?
Now,
Now
living it
what?
now.
And you,
Isidore emphasized that a lot, right? Living in the
yeah,
present moment,
in the present moment.
now, being
Yeah.
present in the now.
So that's one little thing. I'm still working on that morning thing,
Mm-hmm.
noticing where my thinking's going for the day early on,
Yeah. Well,
automatic.
yeah, what I learned to do with that is any thought that disturbs my inner calm or inner peace,
Hmm.
I relate to that just as if you're touching a hot stove,
Hmm.
pain in the finger is telling you take your finger off the stove.
Hmm.
And if I'm touching in my mind with my attention a thought that's creating an inner disturbance, I regard that as a signal. Just let that go. Don't go there.
Let it go.
Maintain that orderly state.
Hmm.
Maintain
And of
that
course,
state of calm.
you have to have the skill of self-reflection and self-observation. And that is a skill you can develop to a high degree. If you're just not going to pay attention to what you're thinking or feeling, well, you probably just keep on doing that for a long time.
Well, I
And it's
think
not going
Isidore used to say, attention is the master key.
to. Hmm.
Whatever gets your attention gets you.
Yeah, and over time, I've learning and still learning always. Why am I still focusing on that? That's not going to bring any kind of positive or constructive or balanced energy into my life. Then I sometimes have a justification that goes through my thinking, like,
Hmm.
yeah, but that's how it is. So I don't want to deny what is.
Yeah, right, right,
So I'm going to keep thinking about it. Maybe I'll figure out how to get through what is
right.
by thinking.
Yeah,
No, just by
yeah.
structure and function and order
Mhm.
and not stopping was wrong. I don't like the word stopping, but letting go. I like the word letting go. Letting go of that thought line.
Mhm. I think in one of his notebooks, and I want to talk about the notebooks that you have on Patreon,
Yeah.
that people can now read a ton of Isidore's material. We've
Hmm.
talked about how to read it constructively.
Yeah.
So could you just clearly state how people can get access to Isidore's material that you have on your Patreon? I think it's only like $3 a month.
Yeah,
And
it's minimal. I
yeah.
purposely did that because it's make very affordable.
Mhm.
Uh, you basically go to patreon.com/ spiritual frequencies. I think you have it in the
In the
below, don't you?
description. Yep.
In the below. I think some of people, listeners, have joined in the last month or so, which
Oh.
is nice. Now, when you get there, you have to go to the search box. There's about 275 posts there. a lot of my writing, but all the writing I could find that I had in my library, in my notes. Oh, and there you go. Okay, we're coming back.
Yeah, they were frozen for a moment, so I just figured I would. It said I'm getting a message that says that my internet connection is unstable, so it may be mine. It's pretty windy out there tonight.
It's a good opportunity to go in neutral and handle the situation because it's a deviation and distortion caused by environmental disturbance.
Exactly. You know, that's the beautiful thing about organics. Like every single thing that happens is an opportunity
Yeah.
to gain liberation, you know, from old automatic patterns and to allow yourself to just trust in the peace and the harmony within, and everything
And
works out from there.
it'll work out. It'll be fine. Just
It is.
stay peace
Right.
centered, whatever
Yep.
you want. What was I talking about, Bob?
So we were just talking about how people can access Isidore's material. I was
Oh,
to
okay.
hear
Here we
that
go.
people who have been listening to the show, and I'm getting some very positive feedback.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, from my perspective, you and I are just kind of hanging out as friends and talking about what we love to talk about.
I think it's fantastic.
People are digging it.
Energizing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go to patreon.com/spiritual frequencies.
Mhm.
You also have the link below on your YouTube channel, if I recall correctly, which is very easy to find. But if you use that, you can't miss it.
Mhm.
Then you get there. Once you sign up, you'll see a small search box. Now, Izzy asked me years ago, back when we were studying, could you put together a introduction to organics? He asked me to do that. So I went through all the material that I had and I came up with, it's called the Introduction to Organics. It's like 7 major writings that are the foundation of organics. He looked it over and said, good, let's put that out. And of course, then, you didn't have I didn't have access to a copy machine
Mhm.
anyway, we got it out the best we could. But
Yeah.
you can type in Introduction to Organics and
Mhm.
it'll come up. Another thing you can put in is Isidore Friedman and
Mhm.
things will come up. You
Or
can
just
put
reading it. Yeah.
yeah, Friedman, just Friedman.
Yeah.
And you'll find notebooks. Now, the notebooks, at some point, we want to get them all transcribed into word processing. So, yeah, my printing back then was a little bit rapid because there was a lot to going on when we get there to talk with them and hang out. We're
Yep.
talking, we're learning, we're writing.
Yep.
So sometimes it's a little sloppy. So you do the best you can.
Mhm.
We'll eventually get everything, into word processing. But there are, I think, about 25 notebooks there.
Yeah, and if you want to study the material the way we did, just
Yeah,
copy it by hands.
exactly. Just copy it by
Not
hand.
copy it by hand, not copy it by computer, but actually write it out so you have
Hmm.
it in your own notebooks.
Yep.
Remember, he would, while I would be copying his notes from his momentous stack of notebooks, you know, he'd give me a choice. Which one do you want to look at today? Which one do you want to go over? And then,
Hmm.
and while I'm writing, he'd be talking.
Yes, pretty
And
much the whole time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And he would say, like, because you need to be able to focus on both things at once just to develop your
Hmm.
awareness. And every now
Exactly.
and then, if my awareness would drift, he'd touch me like that. He just
Oh,
just
more of a grounding function.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I was very ungrounded.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
very
Very good point. So it's well worth the effort to
Mhm,
do that.
mhm.
Uh, and again, there's several writings there. I think he had way more than 25 notebooks, by the way. I mean,
Mm,
that's 25 that I was able to copy. There's way more. And I
mhm.
wish I had access to all of those. I don't know where they are, but at least we have something. And most of the stuff is repeated in different ways
Yeah.
over time. So it's not like you're missing anything necessarily.
He has stuff on Egyptology,
Oh,
ancient Egyptian wisdom. He has stuff on alchemy. He has stuff on Kabbalah, stuff on tarot.
yep.
And
Astrology.
then astrology.
Yeah.
So you know, you connected to Isidore through astrology as well. You became an
Good.
you were an astrologer before you started working with him, were
No,
you?
no. I was aware of astrology in a light way because where I was studying with Francois, we recognize astrology as a tool, but not understanding there are numerous energies in astrology, not just your sun sign.
Yeah.
There's your Mercury, which is your mental energy, Venus, which is your connecting energy, and so on.
Mhm.
So I didn't have that depth at all, but I understood that it was a wonderful tool used by ancients all the way up to the present.
So would you say that you practice a kind of an organic approach to
Oh yeah,
astrology?
definitely
And
organic
you
approach.
still do charts, right? You still
Oh
do
yeah,
charts,
all the
right?
time.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm
So
doing one right
people,
now. I think
yeah.
it's one of your students, if I believe. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I think her name is Amy. I haven't started it yet.
Great,
Yeah, she's
great,
in
great.
Minnesota.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
I use people's names on our podcast? Is it okay?
No.
Okay.
Actually, I have two students named Amy from Minnesota. It's
Oh,
ironic. Yes.
maybe together, Amy. We'll talk to the first Amy.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so yeah,
And
I do
so,
the
and so if
chart.
somebody
Oh,
an
yeah.
astrology chart from you, why? Why would they want an astrology chart from
They
you?
can get a sense of better understanding of their energy
Mhm.
and how to use their energy to bring about the best changes in their life that would benefit them toward their purpose and wise goals. It's a tool like anything else. It doesn't give you all the answers, no way, no shape, no form. But if you test it out, and one of the things I use in the beginning with a lot of people that get interested in astrology is I give them, and I will with most people I do, over the next 3 months, track your moon sign each month. Say their moon is in Gemini. When the moon goes to Gemini, which is 2.5 days every month, you look at that. Now, if you also look at where your Saturn was, and the moon represents everyday energy, just under the rhythm of the day. Then you look and see where your Saturn is. And say you had Saturn in Gemini. So when the moon goes through Gemini, it's going to connect with your Saturn, which is order, discipline, structure, timing. And if the more unconscious you tend to be, the more you can run into roadblocks, frustrations, miscommunications, mistiming, pushing too much when you should be slowing down. And I actually give them that to test this out over the next 3 minutes, 3 minutes, three months.
Yeah, so
Hurry
it
up.
helps them. It's helpful for tuning into the energies that are present, how to
Right.
work with the energy world, which is what this podcast is really about, is helping people
Tuning
transition
in. Yeah.
into energy consciousness.
Yeah.
And
So it's a wonderful language of energy. It's unfortunate that it has a lot of the ancient terminology or old terminology. Usually when I do a chart, I hardly ever talk about that stuff. I just talk about the energy.
Mhm.
I don't really go through your Mercury's in this, your Gemini is this,
Oh,
your this.
interesting.
I
Mhm.
just kind of I look at the whole thing and I say, this is what I think most will benefit them right now.
Mhm.
I stick with that. That's kind of how I approach it. Although I also do the full year thing too sometimes for people, where you have a calendar and I mark all the calendar with colors. So you can see your highs and low medium days
Right.
month by color.
Now, one reservation I've had to
Yeah.
getting that deeply involved, and for years I was,
Oh,
I would
yeah.
have the astrological calendar and work with
Mhm.
it. Was just a concern that I didn't want to program my subconscious unnecessarily. I
Mhm.
wanted to be able to be fresh and open to the energies in the now without the suggestion of this is going on or this is not going on.
I
What
agree with that.
comment to that?
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
How do you deal with that aspect?
What I found from time to time, I don't get the astrology calendar.
Ah,
I just let it, I don't have one this year. Now,
mm,
how do you handle the energy that you're feeling now, which is actually better and wiser and more long lasting than having planetary terminology that
mhm,
you're putting in your mind, your subconscious, and so on? Because you can get into a state of blaming or conditioning yourself to a certain way of seeing it.
mhm.
Can lead to what we talked about. Whatever your mind is on, you're going to draw to you.
Yeah, like so many people are familiar with like Mercury in retrograde.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And I request nobody ever tell me when Mercury's in retrograde.
I
If,
just go in neutral.
if I have a computer glitch, I'll deal with it,
That is not structural and functional astrology.
Right,
Using Isidore's training is basically you're using it as a tool
right.
to help describe the energy and handle things better in the day-to-day life,
More consciously.
more conscious. And it gives you a nice language to use. But if you get like too over focused, like on anything,
Hmm.
like now you have an answer or the answer, or now I've got exactly what's going to happen. No, that's not a useful tool. It's a wonderful tool, but for example, my son and his current wife asked me could I do a chart for a day for them to be having their wedding.
Hmm.
Okay, so I know their charts, and I gave out 2 or 3 dates, but I told them up front. I said it's more important that you feel the time, the space-time energy matter that's best for you.
Hmm.
Astrology is limited.
Hmm.
So respect that. If I give you some suggestions and it's not in the flow of what you need to do or want to do, that doesn't feel right to you, don't do it.
Well, I always consult with you
Yeah,
for when should we record our podcast and when should we release it? And you draw that determination astrologically, right?
I
To
do.
some degree.
Exactly. And of course, that's limited.
Mhm,
Ideally, a person doesn't need all of those. They can be in the moment. We've described it many times over the last podcast,
mhm,
and you can feel the energy and you can make choices in that moment. What's the wisdom that would make sense in this moment? And
mhm.
you can call it whatever you want, but that's partly a goal of astrology. And one of the things I think Izzy used to talk about with me with astrology was going beyond the chart. As a person becomes more evolved, I find the chart really doesn't give a clear picture of who they are as much because they've actually, say, for example, my son was low on air. So he's actually got
Astrological
air, low on air. Thank you for clarification.
error.
There's four elements: earth, water, fire, air.
Right.
And he had 0 air planets out of 10. So, but guess what? His major in college was communication.
Oh,
He actually became even really good at communication.
well, he could be great. I mean, he'd be able to really describe factually and down to earth, nitty gritty details of things in a
He
very
developed his air element.
concrete communication skills.
Yeah. So you can develop any skill you want. You can go, I call it going beyond the chart. You don't really need to know anything about astrology, ideally at some point, maybe never.
I think ultimately we're meant to go beyond
Oh, yeah.
it. You know, that the personality, the chart applies very much to the personality. And so like I'm an Aries, so impatience would be one of the things I have to overcome in
Yeah.
life.
It
In
does
order,
give you clues,
yeah.
clues to work on, no doubt about it.
So,
And
you know,
go ahead.
one of the things that Isidore would talk about, which I don't really remember hearing anywhere else in all the reading I've done, which is a lot,
Mhm.
about digesting experiences
Oh, yeah. Digesting your
and
experiences.
not going into the next experience with with an undigested experience within you.
Hmm.
Like so what is that? How would you elaborate on what it means
I,
to
I,
digest our experiences?
I call it DPE, digesting past experiences, just for
Okay.
easy remembering.
Mhm,
And based on my interactions with Izzy, to have a lust for more experience, more, and not take time to what have I learned from my experiences? What can I alchemically transmute from the experience to be a wiser, more conscious person? So taking time out to look at it, you can do it many ways. You can just think about it for a little bit, not overthink, but just look at it without
mhm,
opinion, without right or wrong. I'm noticing, yes, I did this. I drew this experience to me. That happened, a very similar experience here too.
mhm,
Now, usually set a time limit, so I'm not spending hours on it. You don't want to fall into a space where you're getting yourself down and criticizing yourself. You're simply going, by putting your mind on it, you're digesting it.
mhm,
You can analyze it to a degree,
mhm.
not overanalyze it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. It's reviewing, you know, one of the things we would have us
Reviewing.
is to review our day. But
Yeah.
you know, I got to a point, and I think when one studies this work and stays connected to their feelings and their energy, where you can feel like I don't need another experience. I need to stop and digest where I've been. And
Yes.
what it means to digest where I've been is very similar to the digestion of food, where I
Hmm.
look at it, what are the lessons I've learned? How did I handle that situation?
Hmm.
And then there's the excrement part, like what do I need to let go of? What was the automatic reaction pattern that sort of caused a glitch in that situation that I don't want to repeat? And based on you know, he would talk about psychology, CYCOLOGY, that
Yep.
everything, you're going to get a chance to go through that again.
Hmm.
If you digest the experience, the next time you go through it, you go through it a little bit wiser, more intelligent, more loving, more peaceful, more calm,
Yes.
functionally. But that feeling, you know, like you were talking about the lust for experience, people want more and more and more experience instead of, and without ever pausing to stop, say, now, okay, what did I just go through? What's going on in
Hmm.
my life right now? How did I get here? What's happening? Right. And I
Yeah.
think we made
Oh, yeah.
reference to this statement, you know, in previous show where he would quote his own teacher and say that unexamined or unconscious experience is like a bald man's comb.
I
Remember
can
that
vouch
one?
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Oh, yeah, I
so
remember that.
to
Yeah.
actually digest, take the time to digest your experience. So one exercise that he had us do was to review the day in reverse order.
Hmm.
End of the day. Do you remember that? Did he talk
Oh,
to
yeah,
you?
of course. Yeah,
Yeah. And you
absolutely.
just see what happened, how did
Hmm.
I deal with it, and how might I deal with it better if it happens again? Not to put myself down for not getting it right,
Exactly. Very important. Yeah.
to allow myself to learn. You know, Vitfan talked about the biggest obstacle to spiritual growth is the need to have a good opinion about ourselves, right? Like
Yes.
I can't see how I got it wrong because that will make me feel bad about me.
Yeah.
Instead of, yes, I can learn, I can see. If I'm in baseball, I swung the bat this way, it didn't work. Maybe if I swing it up here, it'll work better.
Hmm.
Digesting experience, you know, to take out the nutrients, right?
Hmm.
So
I,
it's just,
I like that a lot. Because oftentimes people will say, well, now you have a couple of weeks off. Are you going to go on vacation? I might just stay home and digest.
that's right.
That's my vacation.
That's right. Find your peace
When I
there.
was younger, I couldn't wait to do more and more and more and more and more. Then, of course, coming across Izzy, why am I doing more?
That's
I
right.
don't even know what happened to the more I already did. I
Yeah.
mean,
And
so
he would talk about how a sign of an advanced soul is that you could be at peace and content when there's nothing particularly exciting happening.
that sounds wonderful to me.
Me too. Okay, so we are close to the
Yeah.
end now, and just
Okay.
to know if there's anything that you would like to share with our audience. This is our number four
Yeah.
session. So four is like the four elements. Uh,
Hmm.
Four is kind of balance and building and completion. So maybe we've completed a stage in the process of
Hmm.
this work that we're doing together.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe there's something you'd like to share about what this work has meant to you and where
I
we're
would say
going.
for those people who are consistently watching each episode, and of course they're available on your YouTube channel, so they're not hard to find. They're also on Spotify because I think once a month I convert the video into a what's it called an MP3 file, audio file, and put it on Spotify. So it's there. And I also put a copy on Patreon, so you have three locations. But you can look at one, you can look at two, three, four. So, or every so often, if
Mhm,
that's fine with your schedule, but at least it's available 24/7.
mhm,
Don't have to watch the whole episode.
mhm,
You can watch part of it,
mhm,
listen to it and check it out, test it out, listen to some of the practical things that have been brought up that you might want to try out.
mhm.
Kind of
So
what I could do with.
so four in the tarot,
Oh
right,
yeah.
is the emperor. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I
As
can.
you look at that image is all about bringing order to earth
Mm,
by bringing order to the mind.
mm,
And so maybe as people leave today's podcast, they can just contemplate on the feeling of being in an ordered
mm.
state of order rather than a state of chaos, for the
Yeah,
peace and joy and loveliness that that brings. Okay, my friend, it was
I
great
agree. Thank
connecting
you.
with you. Okay.
All
And
power to you.
until next week or next month, rather.
Next
Uh,
month,
Thank
next
you very
time.
much. Love you, Greg, and we'll
Yeah,
talk
love you.
again. We'll do it
Adios,
again.
amigo.
Adios. Thank you.